It's time to turn your life-challenging moments into life-changing messages. Welcome to the PowerLift Stories podcast, where we are interviewing women whose stories will leave you lifted up, fired up, and fueled up with hope, courage, and inspiration. We want to thank our sponsor, Powerful Journey, who helps women tell their stories, write their books, and building a profitable brand around both. Join the masterclass or the Speakers Academy at phyllisjenkins.com. That is PHYLLISJENKINS.com. Now here's your host, Phyllis Jenkins.
Everyone has overcome something, regardless of age or life stage. That means everyone has a story. I'm on a mission to help women turn their life challenges into life-changing messages of hope, inspiration, and encouragement that will help others not only survive, but thrive. I'm Phyllis Jenkins, the founder of the Powerful Journey organization, where we are indeed helping women to turn their life challenges into life-changing messages, tell their stories, write their books. I just finished a powerful interview with our guest today, Myhriah Young. I was truly blessed by Myhriah sharing with me that this is only her second time telling this story. So sit back, or you might want to lean in and listen to Myhriah's story. If you can relate to her story, then listen and take action. If you know of someone who can relate to her story, then send this to them, and then you walk alongside that person and help them to get help. So again, here's the interview with Myhriah Young. Hello, and I am here today with beautiful Myhriah Young. Welcome, Myhriah.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, I'm super excited to have you here. And let me just jump right in and share with you who Myhriah is and all the great things that she is doing. And then we'll jump into our interview today. Myhriah Young is a wife and the mama of two. She is the first impressions director at the 48 Days Disc Crew and founder of G.A.L.S, which is an acronym. We'll talk about that a little later. G.A.L.S, community shows and live events for ladies who want to have fun, empower, and encourage one another. Myhriah will be launching her own show in G.A.L.S signature Self Specialist in November. That's just around the corner, y'all, when she will create magic by helping women to discover their true selves and dump the junk. I'll say that again. I love the way that sounds. It's going to help them dump the junk so that they can design their ideal lives. Welcome, Myhriah.
Thank you, Phyllis. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, let's just move right into our interview. If you were to give your story a title, what would that title be and why?
So my story would be called Your Life Is Not Over. This is what I was told by many when I became a pregnant teenager. And I don't know if you want me to jump right on into my story.
Let's move right on into your life-changing story. Yes, ma'am.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So it really goes hand in hand because I realized looking back that becoming a pregnant teenager was actually my last cry for things that had been happening in my life. And I was sharing this with you, Phyllis. This is only the second time I've ever shared this story, partially because it still deals with people who are in my life today. And it's a hard one for people to have to look at, unfortunately, and see like this happened in her life. And I was involved in that in some.
Well, I am honored. I am honored that you would share this with our listeners. And I know that you're sharing it because you want to make a difference in the lives of others. So thank you, Myhriah.
Thank you. So I'll dive right in. Really, it all kind of came to just a finishing when I discovered my depression. And once I discovered that depression, I was actually able to look back and see, oh, this started when I was like 6 years old. At that time, we were being babysat by a man. My dad was in the military. My stepdad was in the military, excuse me. I'm a military brat of the Air Force and Army. And unfortunately, that was when he began to molest me. It just kind of happens, right? And I don't want to go fully into that story, all the details. We know 1 in 4 women have been molested, right? So the sexual abuse, unfortunately, and this is the part I haven't shared a whole lot, it made me a toxic child. So from that age, not only did I start to seek out and play the things that I had been taught, which we know children do. But unfortunately, I can say and share, and I hate these words even coming out of my mouth, but then I began to touch other children. I don't know if I was the first person to introduce them to that or what, but unfortunately, it happened a lot. And it also began a time when myself and some other children that I was connected to for a longer amount of time, we continued to do these kinds of things behind closed doors when parents weren't looking or we were going downstairs to play or whatever for a very long time. In fact, all the way up until I was about 15 and finally was like, this needs to stop. We have to stop this. I wish I could say that turned into me being healthier. It did not. Turned into me then seeking out love from boys in all the wrong places. I didn't know what I was doing. And so this also corresponded though with a second toxicity, which was 2 different Myhriahs. I could see looking back that there was the Myhriah that everybody saw, outgoing, upbeat. I was a fun kid. I loved mountain biking. I could chase lizards with the best of them. We grew up in the desert. I loved to climb trees while in a dress. And I'm thankful for those moments because it's been what's helped me go back and discover my true self later on. But more and more that there was the second Myhriah who was in the secret, who was in the dark, who was seeking these things out. And that came out in so many different ways, but included, I wish parents knew more about these things, back then, but it wasn't talked about. It just got darker. I wanted to be alone more. I started isolating myself. I began to not really care. I know at that time I sought out some witchcraft and I just did so many different things and I just wasn't interested in life much anymore. On the outside, everybody still thought I was, but there were a lot of things that were telltales. I was getting bad grades. I was misbehaving. I was beginning to just not be the Myhriah that I truly was. So really, when you jump forward, I want to go to that. There's so much more to that story, but it's a long story. So the piece that I really want to share though today was that when I discovered my depression, I was still pretty outgoing lady. I had become a pregnant teenager, my husband now. We were told that that was going to be the end of our life, that we wouldn't make it if we kept the baby. There were a lot of implications made there. We chose to, and we said, watch us.
I love it.
But we did, obviously we fought, we struggled. I personally struggled a ton because I didn't know how to be a good wife. I didn't have those examples, as well as I was still struggling with all this inner stuff that didn't go away. It was still there. And it took, I still was very capable. And that's the thing I think I really want to emphasize here, is that I was still a very capable person. I was on leadership teams. I actually was an amazing mama to a fault. Like, I wanted my kids to be perfect because I had to prove myself. Poor kids. And I really truly tried to do everything perfect, which I couldn't. But it wasn't until I actually had some a lot of suicidal thoughts, actually. I felt like maybe it would just be better if I wasn't here. Perhaps my children would be better off, my husband, everybody, because I just couldn't seem to pull myself together. I could go and do something and be happy and put on the mask. But then as soon as I would step away from that, I was depressed. I was self-sabotaging. I was struggling with losing weight at the time. And I'd go to these meetings, and the moment I stepped out, I would be like, oh, there's a snack just next door, And I just get so angry, like, why can't I move forward? I know I'm a powerful person. I know I'm outgoing. I know I'm upbeat. So I had the suicidal thoughts, which finally helped me to tell my husband. He knew I had been struggling, but he didn't know the extent of the struggle. And it really was a big eye opener to have to go into the doctor and have them ask the questions like, have you had suicidal thoughts? I was just weeping in the doctor's office because I couldn't believe it was me. This is not who I am. And so that really was a catalyst. It was good. He immediately, good husband, he was like, we are getting you to the doctor. We are getting you some help right now. What do we need to do? And yeah, so that was a big part of my story. I feel like I'm going on and on though.
Well, let me just jump in and say that, and thank you so much for sharing. But if there is someone listening right now and you've not told anyone, I want you to listen at what Myhriah said. She confided in her husband, and her husband was immediately able to get help for Myhriah. And as we continue to talk, you'll see this woman is doing some amazing things now. So just let me say, and hear the heart of Myhriah, hear my heart, that if you feel that you are in a place of depression, if you are in a place with suicidal thoughts, please tell someone and go get help, or tell someone or go get help. We beg of you to do that, because as you can see and hear, Myhriah has allowed God to just move into her life and to do the things that he had created her to do. So Myhriah, let me just ask you, how did you see God move through your experience? He does show up in our experiences. So how have you seen him work in your life?
I got to tell you, there's a lot there. So I'm going to tell you a few main things today that stick out to me as I was looking at that question. Some very real, super obvious ones were, especially when I was seeking out that love from boys, put myself in a lot of bad situations. I look back and I think I would never want my daughter putting herself in those situations. But those were the kinds of things I did. I'll be honest, God was really looking out for me. There are multiple times that I can see, like, I hate this question, but I look and I'm like, I feel like I should have probably been like raped or something in that situation. It was so stupid and naive. I can't believe I put myself in this situation, getting together with older men who had cars, and I was like in middle school, telling them I was 16, which even then is not okay. They were like in their 20s. But just different situations. But a couple of really key ones for me were definitely when I started to go seek out help. There was a really big work that we did in healing my inner child. I had a little girl who just kept showing up. She showed up in my leadership meetings. She showed up in network meetings, all these places. And this inner child, this little girl, I always saw her as like an Alice in Wonderland kind of little girl, would always show up and make me feel unworthy. Like I shouldn't be there. I would feel guilt and shame. I felt, what is that? There's the imposter syndrome. That's it. Even though people clearly were seeing something in me to have me in those meetings, but I couldn't feel it. I couldn't enjoy it fully. So when I went in to go do some spiritual direction with my pastor, he was one of the points of help that we sought out. He did a walkthrough for me, and God had shown me 3 visions. One was a woman, and I don't remember if it was a dream. I can't even remember when I had these, but they were like paintings. And the first one was a woman who was in the fetal position, and she was covered by demons, but the demons were like ropes, and the ropes were low self-worth, guilt, shame, all the things, and she couldn't move. She was just stuck in this position. The second image was a cross up in the right corner and scissors, and the scissors were cutting through the ropes. And the final, I'll get to the final one in just a second. So when we walked through, we actually went to the place where things started to happen. We found a place that I had fun in and I love, which was our courtyard. We had courtyards in our neighborhood so that all the houses surrounded, so the kids could all go play. And I watched, my pastor told me to envision Jesus coming out of an area, and it was beautiful. I completely saw it. And Jesus walked out of this area where we would walk to school. And my little girl saw him from the playground and ran over to him, and he picked me up and spun me around and we just hugged. And then he held my hand and we walked away.
Wow.
And that was him healing my little girl and me being able to finally tell her, you know what? You're not needed in this situation. I don't need you to come and be here. I'm fine. I've got this. You can go away. And that brought about the final picture, which was the woman who was in the fetal position, who had the demons cut, and she was able to raise up and worship, and she was free.
Wow.
And when we did link those specific, because the other picture I had was a dump truck, the dump truck with all my junk in it, which is why I have the dump the junk.
Okay.
And I would be able to pull that dump truck several paces. I'm pulling this as I am a mom and I'm a wife and I'm taking my kids to school and I'm a teacher and I'm all these things, and I could do quite a bit, but that dang dump stinking dump truck would just pull me back again.
Wow.
And those ropes, those same ropes that were holding the woman down were the same ropes, the guilt, the shame, the low self-worth. And so we also walked through, once I was that child who was then doing these things, which, by the way, we textbook know kids do that. Mm-hmm. He cut those too. And I heard God audibly tell me when we cut those, and I had that freedom from those demons, that it wasn't just for me. Wow. And that is why I'm sharing this story today, because it's not my platform. I don't necessarily work in this. It actually, I thought I would work in depression with people with depression at one point, but that's depressing. I can't do it for myself. But I always look for the opportunity to be able to share that, because we know 1 in 4 women have been sexually abused as children. And so who else is living with that guilt and shame from the potential of what they did afterwards?
And what you just said was that basically is what I share with my clients. Your story is not for you. Mm-hmm. Once God has brought you on the other side of it, he's brought you through it, then it is now for you to go and share what God has delivered you from, what he has rescued you from, so that you can throw a lifeline out to someone else that's in quicksand. And your story and your lessons learned helps to pull that person out of their situation. So again, I just want to share with those of you that are watching today, whether you are contemplating sharing your story or you've already shared your story, I want to congratulate you if you have. If you haven't, listen at what Myhriah just said. It's not your story anymore. It's for you to go and to share and to help someone else who is walking or about to step into those very shoes. So Myhriah, I want to applaud you again. And as we bring our interview to a close, I have one last question, and then I do want you to share more about what you're doing. My last question is, I want you to visualize yourself standing on a stage, and you've just finished speaking, sharing your story, just as you did, to a sea of women. As far as you could see, there were nothing but women. And as you shared your story from the stage, there were women who were leaning in, listening to your every word. There were women who were wiping tears because they could relate to you. There were women who were holding their heart, saying, wow, there's someone else that has gone through what I'm going through. I thought I was the only one. But now those women have stood to their feet. They've given you a standing ovation. They have turned to go to their vehicles to return home. You, Myhriah, are left on stage. The curtains close. You are walking away. What are 3 lessons that you hope that every woman walked away with?
I love this question so much, because it's exactly what I needed to hear so many years ago. You are forgiven. God loves you so much. You're his child, and he forgives you. So 2, forgive yourself. It is harder to forgive ourselves over anybody else, I think. And so do forgive yourself. And then I think I wrote something different, but I do want to say, get help. I thought I could, I'm a DIYer by heart. So I thought I could do everything myself. I couldn't. I needed my husband to say, we are going to get you help. because I physically could not do it. I could barely tell him. It was so hard for those words to leave my mouth. And so when I finally did, leaning on those who could help me, I don't think there's any other way I would have gotten through that. Wow. I was done. I was ready to be done. I needed that. So those would be the three things.
Thank you. Those are three powerful lessons learned. Now let's talk about what you're doing now. You're doing some great things, and share with our community what you're doing and then how they can jump on board and join you.
Yeah, I'll share today, I think mostly about G.A.L.S, because that just feels like the right fit. So I actually, one thing I didn't really share, I will be very quick with it, was that when I was going through my depression, something that did help me actually was several personality tests that I was taking at the time for a leadership group. And they didn't quite resonate. And I was like, this is not me. I don't understand what's happening here. And it really made me do a look at, who is Myhriah? I don't think I even know, because of being those two different Myhriahs, but also then becoming a wife and a mom and just fitting into those roles that I felt were expected. I then just was like, well, I do everything for everybody else. You know, I do this because my husband likes to do this. I do this because my kids like to do this. And it really just was like, well, what do I like to do? I don't even know. What do I enjoy? So it was a great time for me to do what I called my I now call it my signature self-love journey. But it is what I'm going to be teaching in G.A.L.S. It is going to be my show. It's going to be framed around that in the G.A.L.S community. And it is all about discovering the true you. And that includes things like deal breakers. You know, what are you not willing to put up with in your life? Your non-negotiables, like this needs to happen, right? We only live once. And I really believe to fit into the person that God wants you to truly be and to be the person he created you to be, you need to know those things. Because sometimes we say yes to things we shouldn't. Because we're super capable, right? We're so capable. And then it's dump the junk, getting that help that you need. And it's not always counseling. Sometimes it's, you know, maybe it's learning how to wear clothing that makes you happy and it helps you to communicate to the world who you are and brings you joy. And then finally, I go into design your ideal life, which is pretty much what I'm living right now. We've been creating that. And so my goal is to help women to be able to do that for themselves as well. So I actually go through some very, even logistical stuff, like how to prepare a good move if you're deciding to move to a state that's going to be a better place for you and your family. So I actually go into quite a bit in that. And so it's a super fun thing for me. I enjoy it because I've walked through this. I've lived that life that I was not free, not having any fun. And now I've stepped into who I truly am. And I am a fun person. And I can own that. And God has really blessed me as I've started to give myself permission to be that fun. My word last year was exuberant person. So love it. And people can find me in the G.A.L.S community in Facebook. That is the best place. And they will get to see my show there and have further opportunities to work with me directly if they would like to. That is great. And again, G.A.L.S is G.A.L.S. Yes. Is it an acronym for? Yes. It is gorgeous, awe-inspiring ladies socializing, because I was feeling lonely. And I was tired of doing everything around business. And I was like, I just want to have like a slumber party with women. I believe every woman is gorgeous just how they are. I think they're awe-inspiring. And this is why I think you and I connected so much, is because I believe every woman has a story they need to tell. Yes. And then, of course, ladies socializing. We're all about socializing. Love it. Absolutely love it. Well, thank you again, Myhriah, for coming and sharing your life-changing story. Thank you for those lessons learned that you want each of us to walk away with. And I just congratulate you, and I wish you well in all of your new endeavors, as well as the ones that
God has already put you in. So thank you, community, for being here today. And we look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us today. If you are interested in being on the show, go to phyllisjenkins.com. You can also sign up for the Powerful Journey Masterclass or the Speakers Academy at phyllisjenkins.com.